Dear viewers, welcome back to another jam-packed episode this week where I played a ton of games I'll tell you about. There's a bit of news, a boatload of releases and much more. For example, I'm currently playing the roguelite city builder Against the Storm. Expect a review at the end of the month. I can't say too much about it just yet as I'm still under embargo, but we have that coming up. Something to look forward to. What I can't talk about though is everything else, starting with reveals. Dreadhunter dropped their first trailer. Here's the pitch. Plow through hordes of deadly monsters and defeat vicious bosses in an intense, fast-paced shooter RPG where all items are legendary. Levels are ever-changing and combat is razor-sharp. This is a game by Trickster Arts, an indie studio from Prague, which is a beautiful city, and it looks like a pretty game if you ask me. Combat seems impactful, the promises on unique and interesting loot are enticing, and we don't have this many ARPG twin-stick shooters where you are a mech, so that's a nice twist. The planned release date, however, is very far away. It's Q4 2023, which is a year from now. I'm using this section a bit liberally, also just to point out games that may not be revealed last week, technically speaking, or actually speaking. But those could be games that I basically discovered for myself. They were revealed to me, if you will. One of those games is Project Relic, which sounds like a working title, but it is in fact a third-person action RPG made by a group of small devs from Korea. A 3-minute gameplay trailer dropped. The quality due to YouTube compression isn't great, I'm sure, but I think this looks at least somewhat interesting. Release is planned for summer next year, something for on your radar perhaps. Then the game with the worst title of this episode, Dwarf's Adventure. This is a 90s inspired retro dungeon crawler featuring your usual dungeon crawler stuff like enemies, puzzles, loot, etc. The game has one big selling point however, and that is the level editor. You can create your own levels and upload them to the Steam Workshop, or vice versa, play levels created by other players from that same Steam Workshop. The Steam Workshop integration could ramp up the longevity significantly of this early access game, which releases December 2nd. Then, announcements. Against the Storm, I already talked about it. They announced their release date, November 1st. I'll just be using this opportunity to talk a little bit about this game. There is a demo available, by the way, if you're interested. This indie game is made by Aramite Studios and published by Hooded Horse. It is a fairly new publisher, but they have specialized in sim and RTS and city builder games with successful titles like Old World, Clanfolk, those kinds of games. Against the Storm fits perfectly in that portfolio, and the main selling point I would say is that it tries to combine roguelite and city builder. That's rather unique. I don't think I've seen that anywhere before, and whether it works or not, I will tell you at the end of the month when my review is up. Another game I got a key for, but I'm honestly unsure I'll be able to do a separate video on, is Valor, a hack-and-slash arena ARPG. It is currently in early access since 1 year and the full release is planned for November 3rd. It's only €8, but it would be competing against games like Brotato, Vampire Survivors, Soulstone Survivors and even Soul Survivors. You think I'm making up all of these survivors, but I'm not. It is a bit of a tough sell maybe in that context and with such fierce competition in a niche genre like the arena ARPG hack and slash, but I will play it for at least a little bit and let you know my thoughts. Talking about Soul Survivors, I discovered that one last week. While games like Brotato may have been inspired by Vampire Survivors, this one, Soul Survivors, is just a straight rip-off it seems. Nothing really wrong with that I suppose, but it's not even trying anymore. It has 6 unique playable characters, 4 biomes, and it will release early 2023. If any of these games look interesting, be sure to wishlist them, it helps the devs out a lot. Similarly, you can subscribe to this channel, which helps me out a lot. We're slowly but steadily growing and I appreciate every single one of you. Proceeding with Patch Plaza, bringing an overview of patch news. My Time at Sandrock, the cute building adventure, announced their big upcoming patch, Builder Bonds. It features an updated pet system where you can bond with your dog, I'm sure, or your cat, or like whatever pet you have. There will be hugging and kissing, the latter probably not with your pet, but with NPCs, I assume, who knows. You can share your house designs with other players. The game brings updates to the racetrack that already exists and a reworked skill tree. The update drops end of the month. Phantom Abyss Trot patch, the Adventure update. It adds new game modes. There's Classic mode, which already existed in this early access game. Adventure mode, where you get a temple based on your rank. There is an Explorer rank, which functions a bit like ELO. The higher it is, the harder the temples you get. You earn more ranking by winning and looting temples, and you lose it if you die. There is now a story that progresses based on the loot you find. And finally, a daily temple mode with endless retries. V Rising, the vampire adventure ARPG, is planning some cool things. First, there's a free DLC with Halloween-themed goodies you can claim, which allows you to create a Halloween-inspired castle. There's a patch next week that randomizes pretty much everything on a private server, if you so choose, like boss spawn locations, blood spells, etc. Could be fun to mix things up. And if you were always on the fence of trying this great game, but didn't, next weekend, October 28th, the game will be free to play on Steam for the whole weekend. Dorfromantik, the chill indie builder, released the Sakura update, bringing a new biome, full controller support for PC, performance improvements and additional custom mode options. Then releases. Looking back at what released last week. Her Name Was Fire, actually released October 11th, but I missed it, and I saw a trailer and I thought this game might be something for you guys. After all, that is what I see as the purpose of these videos. Discover cool indie games and bring them to your attention. Her Name Was Fire is a Terrapunk twin-stick roguelite with deck building elements where you progressively unlock spells and upgrades to defeat hordes of void creatures. Survive the 5 stages of grief and vanquish the major allegories. Visually, this game is a total shit show, not gonna lie, but there's something about the aesthetic that is still quite appealing. It's only €4, so it's hard to go wrong there. That's a beer these days where I live. Something else I missed, because I don't think there was any marketing for this, is card game Marvel Snap, which takes place in the Marvel Universe, of course. It's made by Second Dinner Studios, the newly founded studio from Ben Brode, the guy who invented Hearthstone, pretty much. It has a bunch of ex-Blizz devs working on it too. It's rated with a 77% user rating on Steam so far, and it's free. I played a few hours and it's extremely solid. I love the fast-paced games as well. It's much better than Hearthstone in that regard. Always a concern, of course, is monetization in these games, but it seems fair because by playing, so far at least, you keep unlocking new cards, and I'm already able to win most games against other players with low-level decks. Strategy is important here, and I love what I have seen so far. Deadlink, released into early access for only €16, that is not much. This guns-blazing cyberpunk FPS with roguelite elements is already making a name for itself with a 91% positive user rating on Steam. A Plague Tale Requiem released, the long-awaited sequel. The critics love it with an 85% on Metacritic and 83% on OpenCritic, with IGN saying that it is a safe but exciting sequel with an impressively alarming amount of reds. Not entirely sure what this guy was expecting, but fine. Steam users agree, by the way, scoring it an 85%. This game is also available on Game Pass, and on Steam it costs you €50. The Valiant dropped for €40, which is a hefty price for a game like this. And Steam reviews are not kind to this one, with only a 45% user rating. That's pretty bad. Reasons are buggy combat, dull gameplay, and not enough diversity in online multiplayer. Also, everybody claims that Ancestor's Legacy, a game I'm unfamiliar with but was released a long time ago, is basically better in every way and like half the price. Not a great launch, this one, and it's hard to see this rating ever getting positive. It's got a long way to go at least. Batora Lost Haven has more than double the review score of the previous game. It's sitting at 100%. That's pretty good, 100%. It can't get much better, in fact. Only caveat here that it is from just 16 reviews at the time of writing. But hey, it's a good start. The game is €25, very decently priced, and I'm happy to see people are enjoying this one. Vampire Survivors, the best game of the year pretty much, released the 1.0 version. It's €5 and you should go play it. There is nothing else to say, really. And lastly, The Last Hero of Nostalgaia, a satirical action-adventure brought to life by a twisted and wicked tale. Featuring hard but fair combat, full character customization, unique battle armor and engaging narrative mechanics rich in lore. It reminded me of Sir Whoopass. It has a similar cringy trailer, but the players do love this, rating it a 93% so far on Steam. I never expected the satirical ARPG genre to actually make a name for itself, but in a short time span you have these two very similar titles, both well respected by the players, and there may be more in the pipeline. This was a tip as well from a viewer last week, thanks for that one. So keep those tips coming. Let's look ahead at what is releasing this week. I See Red releases October 24th. In the roguelite twin-stick shooter I See Red, you take justice into your own hands. Find your way through dreary spaceships and use every tool at your disposal. Will you get your revenge? Yeah, that's always the question, isn't it? Selling points here are your boy, that's me, who played the demo and enjoyed that part, at least, plus of course the unique visual style. Edengate, The Edge of Life, is a casual story-rich adventure. It releases October 25th. Explore the deserted city of Edengate and follow a young scientist's emotional journey as she searches for hope and solves the mystery of what happened to her and the world. This is a game when you're not in the mood for killing thousands of monsters in an arena shooter. That's rare, but it happens to some people, or so I heard. Something completely different. Look at this. Yomawari Lost in the Dark, combining the cute with the horrendous. This is one of those games that isn't on any list, honestly, apart from those websites literally listing every single Steam game that comes out. If you're unaware, there are these days about 10 to 20 games releasing on Steam every single day, and they're all on those websites and they're all garbage. Those are the websites I scour, and then sometimes you find a little gem like this. I think this is amazing, you might agree. It releases October 25th. The third game releasing October 25th is Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord, the medieval RTS game and long-awaited sequel to that beloved original. It's been cooking in the early access oven for a long time, and in just a few days the full version is polished enough to be released. Should be a great game. Another kind of interesting game is Papercut Mansion, especially the art style here. The devs call it a papercraft roguelite. It looks like the first game from indie studio Space Lizard Studio, great name, and this has me intrigued actually. Papercut Mansion features a creepy and thrilling storyline with different endings depending on your performance, game mechanics designed for high replayability, permadeath, unique AI for each enemy type, puzzles, collectible upgrades and equipment customization. It releases October 27th. Two more games released that day, one of them being Sins of a Solar Empire 2. I think that's an Epic exclusive. This is a very complicated space sim, something you have to be into, but for those who are, the sequel should come as a great thing. And lastly, Signalis, also available on Game Pass. This is a retro pixel art horror game. It's quite creepy, the whole thing. The trailer shows a bunch of German words. It's always creepy, of course. I don't think anyone actually knows what's going on here in this game, but whatever it is, you can play it on the 27th of October, just before Halloween hits. Talking Steam Deck and demos, not much going on with the Steam Deck, but I did play an awful lot of games. For example, the Trepang 2 or Trepang Squared demo. Last week I said it looked like Fear, and this demo plays like it too. It is simple in a lot of ways, but very satisfying, guns blazing action with bullet time, invisibility, just a lot of fun stuff. I liked the combat and how smooth everything ran. It allowed me as a casual to still pull off some slides, some moves, some other weird stuff. The powers you have as a spec op are cool too, being able to slow down time and cloak yourself. The guns felt amazing, honestly, without exceptions, as do the physics and sound design. It makes these fights really pop, which is what you want, I would say. I did notice a few strange things. There's no way, or at least no logical keybound, for aiming down the scope. Looking at trailers, I don't see anyone aiming down scopes or sights either. This is a first-person shooter. I don't know why this is not a thing, but okay. Also, you can only carry one weapon at a time. And while that's probably realistic, I would appreciate a bit more inventory space to carry at least 2, so I can swap and I can have a shotgun and an assault rifle, for example. Now, when I'm running out of ammo, I have to pick up new stuff from the ground. It's not ideal and you're constantly getting shot at. Also, a minor detail, but the demo state it's over and then there's an entire level still to play, so don't be fooled by that message. I recommend you play the demo though. It gives a good overview of the game. It's like only an hour long and it has me excited for the full product, that's for sure. The next demo, Mato Anomalies, is an Asian detective RPG with smooth jazz. Very interesting game where you're a private detective and you need to find some stuff called handout, and the search for it pulls you into other dimensions, because of course it does, where your teammates fight strange monsters. It's just another JRPG story trope. I enjoyed the visuals, the turn-based combat and the story, which is solid. Main reason for that is the voice acting, which occasionally hits in a cartoon style narrative, driving the plot forward as you're reading a comic book. It blends all these styles together, and while lesser games would screw this up, Mato Anomalies hits the right balance there, at least in the demo. There's a card game incorporated in this game even, which kicks in if you want to mind hack somebody, Inception style. The demo is really short, but I liked what I saw so far. I played the Darktide closed beta for a few hours. I didn't record any footage, but that was a lot of fun. It's Vermintide 2, but then in the 40k universe. Didn't really run into any issues apart from my PC melting, not being able to anymore to run this game on high settings. It's very demanding, but I'm not blaming the game or anything because it does look gorgeous. It's just that the 2080 is starting to get old, like me. Something I play a lot more than just a few hours, the Steam beta of the First Descendant. I requested this access ages ago. I didn't really even know what sort of game this was, and it turns out it is a sci-fi third-person ARPG shooter like Destiny or Outriders. In terms of Destiny, it has the world building of a Destiny game with well-designed levels, tunnels, caves, old industrial buildings and a hub that is almost indistinguishable from the tower. However, it doesn't have the famous Destiny gunplay, which is still unrivaled to this day. That doesn't mean it's not good. I felt combat is overall rather solid and satisfying, but it's more on the Outriders levels of solid. Performance-wise, plenty of graphics options and the game ran well in high settings with DLSS unbalanced on my 2080 in 1440p. That is, if the servers ran at all, more on that in a bit. In terms of loot and skills and upgrades, there is a lot of variety. You can play a whole bunch of Descendants, which are unlockable characters even in the beta. Each has its own identity and playstyle and special powers you can use. The guns are divided into 5 main categories: rifles and SMGs, handguns and hand cannons, more exotic weapons like beam rifles, long-range gear like sniper rifles, and then finally shotguns. What is interesting is that these weapons are all tied to a specific group of runes, which you can tinker with. So the shotguns always make use of the same rune group, and you can slot all sorts of runes in that group, increasing the damage, clip size or fire rate of shotguns. And this then applies to all shotguns that you put in your equipment. The runes have more specialized abilities too, like no recoil after swapping weapons for a few seconds. I feel there's enough variety here to make some really broken combinations. It also provides a clear way to improve gear next to the weapons themselves. I saw a healthy variety in all aspects of the game honestly in this stage, both in levels, biomes, enemies and their designs, and of course gear. The only thing that's really problematic currently, and hopefully they can get a hold on this before this actually launches, is the server stability. It's really bad from time to time, with either massive input lag or the game just freezing up completely. It has basically all server issues you have ever encountered, from rubber banding to randomly disconnecting and everything in between. If the devs manage to solve that aspect, which we know by now isn't easy, and you like what you see here, this is definitely something to put on your radar. I was pleasantly surprised by this whole thing. There's no release date yet, Steam just states that it is coming soon. And the final section, free games, because the personal updates I'm just weaving in throughout the episode. Epic this week has Evil Land, an interesting title where the art style progresses with the story. So you start in an 8-bit NES art style and then at some point it's 3D PlayStation levels or something. Very cool stuff actually. Also, there's this little indie title called Fallout 3. It's available for free. It is the Game of the Year edition, which means it has all the DLCs in there as well, if for whatever reason you've never played this. Uncle Phil from Game Pass brings us a Plague Tale Requiem, of course. There's Soma, the underwater horror game, if you're into that. Phantom Abyss is now available in early access over here, meaning you can unleash your inner Indiana Jones and raid some temples and lost arks. And finally, if you have 120 plus hours to spare, try out Persona 5 Royal. I've never played any Persona game despite being a JRPG fanboy, but hey, sue me. Who knows, one day. And that's it. If you have any questions or remarks, put them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and you want more like this, consider liking the video or even subscribing. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.